Shabbat that I'm joining Adam. So I'll stand a little closer. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
It's great to be here on my second Shabbat, and you'll notice that we are in the social hall because we don't want to get stuck outside suddenly in a thunderstorm, and it's cooler in here than as we experienced last week in the sanctuary. So here we are. Glad for those of you who are here in person and be with us, and those of you who are joining us through the blessing of technology as we open our service this evening in song. Amen, 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 Yisrael, amen, 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 Yisrael, amen, 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 Yisrael, amen, 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 Yisrael, oh, David, and we continue now as we welcome Shabbat with our lighting of the Shabbat candles and our Kiddush. It's my pleasure to invite forward Jeff and Eileen Lesser, who are lighting in honor of their 25th wedding anniversary. Woo-hoo.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher tzivanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu b'ha'ikneh shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei ha'olam. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher tzivanu b'mitzvotav, v'atzah b'ha'adu, v'shabbat kadosh.
Continue with Lecha Dodi. Lecha, Lecha Dodi, Midrak, Midrak, Kala, Midrak, Midrak, Shabbat, Midrak, Lecha, Lecha
di likrat kala, Panay Shabbat likadala, Lekala di likrat kala, Panay Shabbat likadala.
As we remain standing, we take this time now as we welcomed in the Shabbat bride, metaphorically, to welcome one another as we turn to somebody. Perhaps it's not the person right next to us who we already know, but introduce ourselves to one another and greet one another Shabbat Shalom.
This is my son Samuel. He wishes.
And we remain standing as we continue now with our freedom. As we celebrated the freedom this past week of our country, we sing the song of freedom that the Israelites sang and rejoiced at the shores of the sea. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores kat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבת, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות הברית עולם, לעשות את השבת לדורות הברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבת, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבת, ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבת, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבת. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבת, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבת. וביום השביעי שבת ההיא נפש. וביום השביעי שבת ההיא נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבת, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבת.
As we are able, we rise for tefillah.
Adonai, sivat v'tiftachu fi yadi tehillatcha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu Avotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei
May be seated. As we continue at the bottom of page 7. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh Shabbat. Shalom Rab Yisrael Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rab Yisrael Tasim Leolam. Ki atah melech gadol lekol shalom. Ki atah melech gadol lekol shalom. Shalom Rab Yisrael Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rab Yisrael Tasim Leolam. Beto be'emecha yinarei et amcha Yisrael. Be'olit u'bekol shah yishlomecha. We turn our thoughts and prayers now to those who are in need of healing. And some of you may know that I come to Addith Emmanuel and New Jersey from Chicago suburbs, from Skokie. It's about 20 miles, or 20 minutes rather, 20 minutes from Skokie to Highland Park. And so on Monday this week I felt strangely close and strangely far away from Highland Park. And these events that unfolded so near and so far from me. I know the clergy at the Reformed congregation in Highland Park. I know the rabbis very well at the congregation in Glencoe, Illinois, where they lost a staff member and congregant. And in every congregation I've served in the rabbinate up until now, there's been some member or members who have lived in Highland Park. And so I feel strangely close and strangely distant at this time. And so at times like this, I turn to God in prayer to offer comfort and healing. And tonight I'd like to share these words with you written by Alden Solovey, who is a poet and liturgist and friend. If you want to find more of his work, you can go to his website, tobendlight.com. Author of life, source and creator, grant a perfect rest under your tabernacle of peace to the victims of the Highland Park Parade, whose lives were cut off by violence. A rampage of witless aggression beyond understanding. Their hopes were severed. Their dreams were lost to brutality. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life, a living blessing in our midst. May they rest in peace. God of justice and mercy, remember too the survivors of this attack, witnesses of shock, horror, and dismay. Ease their suffering and release their trauma so that they recover lives of joy and wonder. Grant them your shelter and solace, blessing and renewal. Grant them endurance to survive, strength to rebuild, faith to mourn, and courage to heal. Remember the families and friends of the dead and the wounded with comfort and consolation. Grant them your protection, your wholeness and healing. May they find hope and renewal. Heavenly Guide, source of love and shelter, put an end to anger, hatred, and fear, and lead us to a time when no one will suffer at the hand of another, speedily in our day. Amen.
Amen.
And as we turn to God for the healing of our spirits, we also pray to God for the healing of others, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And we are thinking of the following people in our extended Addith Emmanuel family who are in need of healing at this time. If you're joining us through the blessing of technology and you would want to add the name of your loved ones who are in need of healing, feel free to write them in the comments. If you're here in person and you would like to add a name that I have not read, feel free after I've read these names to stand and mention that person's name aloud as my glance meets yours. We think of healing for Lulu Revuela, Marion Wertz, Aaron Tepper, Lily Tepper, William Broderick, Lisa Ager-Brown, Stephen Trumbecki, Joan Major, Karen Bowen, Louis Alahat, Mary Parker, Barbara Cohen, Tricia Tepper, Jordan Maverick Steinberg, Carol Schaefer, Ari Sobel, Harriet Rosenberg, Hudson Hodge, Carrie Basin, Dr. Jerry Herman, Todd Pollard, Rick Fonero, Murray Kammerman, Mary Mednitsky, Jocelyn Jackson, Jen Jones, Shirley Friedlander, Michael Infanti, Gary Garnick, Sarah Oken, Ann Marsden, Jerry Dreskin, Lynn Romsberg, Rick Ulrich, Ileana Cohn. And other names we should add at this time. If you like, you may rise in your place.
Harry Deutsch, Robin Reed, Martin Wilson.
Barry Bookman, Doris Allen.
Carla Teich. Irene Lynn.
Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim. good reason. Not to say that earlier times weren't well warranted. This time they have no water. Again. They're wandering in the wilderness through the desert, and the essential need to their survival is the sustenance of water. I just have to say that this time of year there's some great stories in the Torah. So the Israelites quarreled with Moses. Why have you brought God's congregation into this wilderness for us and our beasts to die there? Why did you make us leave Egypt to bring us to this wretched place? A place with no grain or figs or vines or pomegranates. There's not even water to drink. So Moses and Aaron move away from the congregation toward the entrance of the tent of meeting, and they fall on their faces. Sounds like a familiar theme from last week when Moses fell on his face after Korah's protest. So at the tent of meeting, God appears to them, and God speaks to Moses saying, "You and your brother Aaron take the rod and assemble the community, and before their very eyes order the rock to yield its water." That is, speak to the rock. "You shall thus produce water from the rock and provide drink for the congregation and their beasts." So Moses takes the rod as Moses had been commanded, and Moses and Aaron assemble the congregation in front of the rock, and Moses says to them, or maybe he yells at them, "Listen, you rebels! Shall we get water from this rock?" And so Moses raises his hand and he strikes the rock twice, and out comes copious water to drink. The community and their beasts have water to drink. But God says to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust me to affirm my sanctity in the sight of the Israelite people, therefore you shall not lead this congregation into the land that I have given them." God has punished Moses for not listening to God's word, for striking the rock rather than speaking to it. So why might this have happened that Moses didn't listen to God? And was the consequence that God gave Moses matching and reflective of the deed? So why might Moses have disobeyed God? Let's put the story into context. Just before the people begin complaining, we learn that Miriam, Moses and Aaron's sister, has died. And the people are without water. The rabbis in the Talmud, they juxtapose Miriam's death with the absence of water. They teach that Miriam was the one who sustained the Jewish people during the wandering in the wilderness through a well of water, which existed by the merit of Miriam and followed her and the people in their journeys. And so when Miriam died, the well disappeared. We learn then in the Torah that Miriam dies, she's buried, there's no water, and so the people rally against Moses, and he gets his instructions from God. In the context, Moses is in mourning. He's mourning the loss of his sister. He's experiencing all the emotions of mourning: grief, anger, denial, frustration, sadness, depression. And as the leader of the Israelites, he needs to respond immediately to the rally of the angry mob before him. He's grieving and he's being verbally attacked. And with this mix of emotions, is it any wonder that he struck the rock? A second question to ask is, was the consequence which God gave Moses reflective of the deed? Just a reminder what was said. For not speaking to the rock, God says, "Because you did not trust me enough to affirm my sanctity in the sight of the Israelite people, therefore you shall not lead this congregation into the land that I have given them." So Moses is going to die in the wilderness, and he will not have the opportunity to enter the land of Israel. So was the consequence reflective of the deed? Some say yes. This was cumulative transgression, and it wasn't Moses' first mistake. We learned that back in Egypt, Moses struck that Egyptian taskmaster, and he died. Whether you think that's murder or manslaughter is a debate for your Seder table, perhaps. Secondly, Moses and Aaron are part of the generation which must die in the wilderness. It's only Joshua and Caleb who are going to enter the promised land. So this isn't a huge surprise. This is just part of what should happen to Moses and Aaron. And thirdly, Moses disobeys God pretty clearly right here and shows a lack of faith of God in this instance. Other people say, no, the consequence doesn't match the deed because, look, Moses was in mourning, for one. The people were crabby and kvetchy because there was no water, and Moses was kvetchy because of the people. And another reason is this is not the first time the people are without water, and Moses has used a rod to get water. Back right after they had left Egypt and crossed the sea, they were without water, and God told Moses to take a rod and strike the rock. He only needed to do it once that time, and out came water. So from Moses' experience, you take the rod, you strike the little rock, that's how you get water. So this was, what he knew and how to get water. So it worked in the past, why not now? So I'm just curious, there's arguments on both sides. Yes, he was deserving of this punishment. Now is his time that he was going to be told, you're not going into the promised land. And other people say, no, it doesn't, punishment doesn't fit the crime. I'm just curious, getting to know the folks of Abbott Emmanuel, how many of you think yes, that this is worthy of this consequence is worthy of Moses? Okay, how many of you say no, the punishment doesn't fit the crime? Hands down. How many of you didn't vote? Okay. There's always abstentions, right? Or you could be still thinking about it. So I'll share with you, I tend to lean on the no side. I get caught up in the fact that this is contextually in a period of Moses mourning, and this is what he knew from before. And so then I get pulled, but Moses is not going to be entering the promised land because he also comes from that generation. Maybe this wasn't the best example because it seems so unfitting, the consequence versus the deed. So we go back to the beginning of the portion and we recall there was no water, right? As human beings, we cannot survive without water more than 3 days. And some have likened other things to water, and these metaphors that we find in our lives nourish and sustain, and without them, we would not survive. There's a tradition in Judaism that in addition to holidays, we read Torah on Shabbat, and Mondays and Thursdays. That's the weekly cycle of reading Torah. And why? When I first learned it, I learned, well, Monday and Thursdays were market days, right? When you have a market day, the community comes together, and if we need a community, a quorum of 10, then the community of 10 was present on the market days, so we could read Torah, as well as Shabbat. There's another reason that our tradition teaches that we read Torah in addition to Shabbat on the Monday and the Thursday, so we never go 3 days without Torah, without reading Torah, because of the way it nourishes and sustains us. And this is what our tradition teaches us. So I'm curious, what's your metaphorical water? What is it in each of our lives that nourishes us, that sustains us, that keeps us going, that without it, I couldn't go 3 days? So let's take a moment just to turn to one another and share what those things are.
I have yet to go with that. So, you know, that day will come. HBO show? Yeah. HBO show? There's HBO show. I don't think that's what she had barred.
I don't think so.
Yes. What's that? Music. Yes. That was my second answer.
That was it.
With their parents, they traveled all over the country looking at every single couple. And practically, I mean, and Sarah decided to go to American University. She was interested in political science. They graduated from high school a year apart. Yeah, they've done different things. They're not identical. They're not identical twins, and they've done different things. Ben he got a scholarship. He was from the
It's wonderful that there were family I'm leaving on the 2nd and flying down to Mississippi, where she is the director of teaching.
Probably half a day without texting.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. For those Jews that are there, we just came for 2 kids. But they,
Thank you for engaging in this exercise of metaphoric water. Jenny, I'd be curious to what maybe you heard on that half of the room. I heard some mentions of family and community and love.
A lot of friends and family. A lot of friends and family. One person said TV.
I could go 3 days without TV.
They could not go TV.
I said human contact, you know.
Human contact, companionship, some people who have animals in their lives. So, and for me also, I think I couldn't go without 3 days without music.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that came up someplace else, the idea of music.
Musical.
So I invite us to think about this Shabbat and maybe through the end of Shabbat, these things that nourish us and keep us sustained. And if we find that we're missing that for a day or two, make sure that we reach out in our lives for those things that will continue to nourish and sustain us. Shabbat Shalom. As we turn now in our booklet to Haleinu on page 9, as we are able, we rise.
Aleinu l'shamer v'aton ha'ol, l'ateit v'dilah yatzeh reshit, shelo sanu k'gayei ha'aratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpat ha'adama, shelo samta k'nekahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'anachnu karim, משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר היה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ היום ההוא יהיה אדוני
And so we turn our thoughts and prayers now to those who are no longer with us, and I share with you these names in our Addith Emmanuel family. During the past 30 days, this period of Shoshim, we think of Larry Maslow, those who died in Highland Park, Catherine Goldstein, Irina McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy, Stephen Strauss, Jacqueline Sondheim, Nicholas Toledo Zaragoza, Eduardo Uvaldo, as well as those whose yahrzeits we observe on this Shabbat, who died of the season in years past: Esther Davis, Iris Evans, Dorothy Filler, Mark Friedlander, Charles Gardner, Gail Goldstein, Sarah Gross, Sybil Grossman, Ray Horowitz, Irving Isidore, Marion Katz, Crawford Lesser, Jerry Roth, Beatrice Spiegel, Ben Schulman, Donna Walter. And if there are names that you would like to share and I've not mentioned so far, and you would like to mention that name aloud, I invite you to stand and we can add their name at this time.
Wendy Gale.
Stan Lynn, Pamela Mamarella, and Valerie Kemp.
And so we invite those who are in this period of Shiva and Shoshim to stand at this time. Those who are observing a yahrzeit or are in the first period of year of mourning. And now we invite the congregation to rise as one in comfort and support for those who are in mourning as we continue with the words of Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbah, v'alma divrat yotei v'yamliv malchutei, v'chayechom v'yomechom v'chayei tachol beit Yisrael, v'hagalah v'zman karim v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah v'barach le'olam u'me'el mayim. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramah v'yitnaseh. Yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei tekudshah v'yichu. Le'elam yikol mirchatav v'shiratav. Tush v'chatav v'nechamortav. Ta'amiran v'yilma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah v'yishmaya. V'chayim aleinu v'yalkol Yisrael. V'yimru amen. Oseh shalom v'ramah. U'yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'yalkol Yisrael. V'yimru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say,
Amen.
it's my pleasure to invite Ann Singer to come forward and share some announcements.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Diane.
So the first thing that came to my mind was chocolate, to go through every 3 days of chocolate. Then it was working out, so it's like a vicious cycle that I have. But anyway, thank you, Rabbi Memes Fowler, Cantor Sandy, for leading tonight's service. Thank you to Jeff and Eileen for leading us in our blessings, and Jeff for streaming. Thank you, Micah and Lily, for greeting this evening, and Helen for setting up Oneg. And as always, a special thank you to all of you for joining us this evening. Please join us tomorrow morning at 8:45 for Torah Talk and Bagels, followed by our Simply Shabbat morning service at 10 a.m. This Wednesday, July 13th at 11 o'clock, is our first meet and greet with Rabbi Memes Fowler. It's in the Tapestry Room. We'd like you to RSVP either online or at the office, but we will not turn you away if you show up. It'll be a nice casual setting so that you can chat with the rabbi, get to meet her, she'll get to meet you. So hopefully you can join us. The following week there's a Zoom, and then we have 2 more in August, meet and greets. So hopefully you'll take an opportunity to do a little one-on-one, okay? Sisterhood is off and running this summer. The annual Rosh Hashanah honey sale has begun. Order before August 1st to avoid the shipping fees. And Sisterhood's asking for donations for their annual rummage sale. Drop-off is in room 10. And lastly, join us tomorrow evening at 7:30 for a special Havdalah program where we will be joining the WRJ to discuss and process the news regarding the Supreme Court's recent decisions. Please RSVP to Karen ASAP, she's right over there, if you'd like to join us. And tonight's Oneg is right behind you. So stay for a moment, have a treat, and meet with, okay, if it's my brother, no, it's okay. Take a moment, chat with the rabbi. And tonight's thought for Shabbat, if you awake, you are blessed. Life is a priceless gift. Appreciate every minute of it. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And so we turn now to our closing song on page 11, a song not just for Hanukkah, but year-round, not by night, not by power, but by spirit. And shall we all live in peace?
Not by might and not by power, but by spirit of the Ruach shall we all live in peace. Not by might and not by power, but by spirit of the Ruach shall we all live in peace. The children sing, the children dream, the tears fall on the leaf and fall, and another song will rise, another song will rise, another song will rise. Not by might and not by power, but by spirit of the Ruach shall we all live in peace. Not by might, not by power. Shalom.
And we continue with Motzi. And Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
You have a show?